All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Science event today. Let's chat with a scientist, with Melissa Mills, that represents the Department of Oceanography and Land Sciences. And Melissa can totally explain more about her department when she speaks. My name is Crystal Washington. I am the Let's Talk Science Symposium representative at the University of Victoria. Let's Talk Science is a charitable organization committed to preparing Canadian youth for future careers and citizenship demands in the rapidly changing world by providing engaging, evidence-based science, technology, engineering, and math, which are STEM programs, through experiential and digital programs, through classroom activities, lab tours, science fair judging, Let's Talk Science Challenge, and the development of online resources, symposiums, kind of like the one that we have today, and more. Before we begin, I would like to give the Indigenous land acknowledgement. Let's Talk Science acknowledges the diversity of Indigenous peoples within the land we now call Canada and values the historical and contemporary contributions of these peoples in each region where we live, work, and study. We are committed to working toward meaningful reconciliation and continuing to broaden our understanding in these areas. In particular, we recognize the importance of Indigenous ways of knowing to our understanding of the natural world. Acknowledging the traditional territory on which we live and work is small, but an important step that reminds us to learn more about the Indigenous peoples in these regions, to consider the history and ongoing colonialism on this land, and to reflect on how each of us can contribute to reconciliation. I too would like to recognize that I am presenting from here at my home in Toronto, Ontario, which is situated on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Furthermore, I would like to recognize Melissa, and when she does her introduction, she could do her land acknowledgement if she so desires. And to everyone who's on the call and your the territories or the land that you are on as well. I encourage you all to reflect on the traditional territory where you are situated today. So this is just like a lay of the land of how today's gonna go. First, the Let's Talk Science introduction, which I'm doing right now. Then Melissa is going to do a short presentation on her research and her interest. And we will have followed by questions and answers from the scholars. Feel free, parents and educators, if your scholars have questions while Melissa is presenting, you can just add it to the Q&A and I will keep a running tab and keep an eye on the questions as they come up. But just note that the questions and answers will come after Melissa presents. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the Let's Talk Science wrap up, and I will briefly talk about upcoming events that we have. So who's in the room? Me, Crystal, the Let's Talk Science Symposium coordinator, and we have Melissa Mills, a graduate student at UVic. We also welcome the educators, parents, and scholars from Victoria. All right, so Melissa Mills is a graduate student of Earth and Ocean Science here at the University of Victoria. She is a second-year master's student, and she completed her her Bachelor of Science honors in 2019 in Geology and Oceanography at Memorial University in Newfoundland in St. John's. For her Master of Science, she is researching the geochemistry of the fascinating environments at seafloor hydrothermal vents off the coast of Vancouver Island. Melissa is also a longtime volunteer with Let's Talk Science, and she is eager to share her love of science with your scholars. So without further ado, I give you Melissa Mills, and I will stop share.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Oops. Swap. isn't this working?
Oh no.
Share screen. Okay,
There we go.
there we go.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right, so thank you, Crystal, for that introduction. First, I want to acknowledge, with respect, the Lekwungen people on whose traditional territory the University of Victoria stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanic peoples whose historical relationships with the land continues to this day. So I'm just going to get started and introduce myself. So hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Mills. I'm a marine geochemist. And that seems like a really big word, but I'm going to talk to you about what that means and how I got here over the next couple minutes. And so I have a Bachelor of Science from Memorial University of Newfoundland, as Crystal said, in geology and ocean science. And I'm currently a Master's of Science student at the University of Victoria in Earth and Ocean Science. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about my journey that's brought me across the country to pursue my education in a field that I absolutely love. And I really want to talk to you about how I incorporated my love of the outside and the ocean into my education and how important it is to follow your passions and finding your place in science, because I know finding my place definitely wasn't straightforward or easy. And then I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about what I study and give you a brief introduction on hydrothermal vent systems. So firstly, a little bit about me. I'm from a pretty small town in central Newfoundland. So right here in the middle of the island, I grew up surrounded by the forest and living next to a huge river, as you can see in these photos. This river, the Exploits River, has the largest population of Atlantic salmon in North America. Up to 45,000 fish come back there every single year to lay their eggs. So this is a really fascinating environment to grow up in, and it's very different than Vancouver Island, but very similar at the same time. So growing up from a really young age, I loved everything about the outdoors. And I love learning about different types of trees, flowers, things like fungi, and whatever grows in our forests. And that love of learning was supported by my parents and my teachers from a very young age, through things like buying me guidebooks, educational materials, encouraging me to research our natural environment around me. So that love of science was really fostered from a young age. And then while I was in high school, I got a really exciting job that I worked at for 4 years as an interpreter at a salmon interpretation center. So that's the photo on the top. That's a drone photo of the site that I got to work at every day in the summer for 4 years. This is where I really started to love science education and communication. I got to talk to over 20,000 tourists every summer who would come to our museum to learn about the life cycle of the salmon. And you get to see them in their natural environment in the river. And a really fun fact about the Atlantic salmon that a lot of people from the West Coast don't know is that they're really different than the Pacific salmon. So when the Pacific salmon come up their river, like as you see in the summer, like late summer, like at say Gold Stream, they die after they lay their eggs. The Atlantic salmon don't do that. They come up the river, they lay their eggs, and they go back out to the ocean, and they can do that 3 or 4 times in their lifetime. So that's just something that's really fascinating that a lot of people don't realize. So while working in this education position with tourists and doing community education, everyone really thought I was going to be a biologist because that's what I liked in high school. That's what I really enjoyed. But then I graduated high school and I moved to the west coast of Newfoundland to study chemistry and math at Memorial University's smaller campus, which you can see in the top right photo is nestled in this beautiful forest setting in the hills, very close to the ocean, just a very green, outdoorsy campus. And so for my first year, I was studying chemistry and math. And I really enjoyed chemistry. At that time, I didn't really love math. I have a new, renewed love for math now, but at that time, it wasn't my thing. It wasn't really where I belonged. So as an elective course, I took a geology course, and that is what really interested me. Learning how the earth formed was so new and absolutely fascinating. And I wanted to learn so much more. So I was living very close to the amazing geology found in Grossmoor National Park, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and only about an hour and a half from the campus where I was going to school. This is somewhere I visited countless times as a child, but going out there on field trips with my professor, I finally learned about how it formed and why it looks like Mars. And this sparked a new direction for my education. And it also really sparked a love. My already I already loved the outdoors, but it really sparked this new love because I kind of discovered hiking. I never grew up hiking. I didn't grow up camping, and this is something that was new to me as a newly graduated high schooler. So, moving into this degree where I wanted to be outdoors, this was a new thing. So, I made what seemed like a crazy decision to everyone around me, and I moved to Colorado with an exchange program for a year at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. Here, I was able to see things that were so amazing to me. It was the first time I ever saw the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and while I was here, I hiked in them. I learned about geological processes that formed them, and I learned as much as I could from everyone that I met. Something that I learned as a really important lesson as I was moving forward was to learn as much as you can from those around you, because people who have knowledge are so willing to share that with you. So that's something I kind of wish I learned when I was younger, but I've gotten a lot better at it as I've gotten older, is to talk to people about what they know, because people who are in science love talking about their science. And then, so also while I was there, something that was really cool and it was so new to me was I saw dinosaur footprints. As you can see in the top left photo, these are just in outcrops in parks. And that was so cool to me. And I even got to collect pieces of dinosaur bones from the field, which is really fun to have in my rock collection. So while I was here, I fell in love with geology and I really wanted to learn more. I wasn't satisfied as of yet, and I still really was only 2 years into my degree. So I moved back to Newfoundland after my exchange was over, and I started my geology degree at Memorial University's larger campus in St. John's. Um, so something I realized as I was living so far away from the ocean, I was landlocked in Colorado. And for those of you that grew up on Vancouver Island or near the ocean anywhere, you you definitely understand the same way that I feel. It just has this draw to the ocean. So I realized that I also really wanted to incorporate that into my education. So I added an oceanography minor to my program as well. So now at this point, I was only 20 years old. I'd been to 3 different universities in 3 years. And I had only just come to the decision about what I wanted to do. And so at this point, other people judged my decisions or what seemed like an incredible indecisiveness at the time. But I finally figured out what I wanted to do. And while I was living in St. John's, I really found my place in science in a field where I truly felt like I belonged. And that was in the geology earth science department at Memorial University. And even though I grew up in Newfoundland, I don't think I truly experienced it until I was learning about the incredible processes that shaped this island in the North Atlantic that has horrible winters and short, foggy summers. But during my degree, I got to spend so much time hiking through the woods, looking for cool rocks and geologic features, and being near the ocean, seeing icebergs and whales just 30 feet offshore. These being near the like in the woods, being near the ocean were two things that made me really happy, and even happier because I was learning a lot while I was doing it. So then I graduated with my Bachelor of Science, and I moved across the country in the summer of 2019 to Victoria to start my master's. So the purpose of telling you all about how I got to this point is really just to highlight the main point about how being exposed to multiple aspects of science. So, like I said, I worked in biology, I studied chemistry and math. I learned about the incredible multidisciplinary aspects of geology and oceanography, because these are two branches of science that incorporate every single other branch of science. There's biology, chemistry, math, physics, and all of it comes together to explain the processes that are happening on Earth. So with that, being exposed to so many different types of sciences and having so many experiences, whether that was in my own province or in another country, it was just really important to being able to figure out exactly what I wanted to study. So now at this point, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the scientific field that I was able to start learning about in the last year of my Bachelor of Science. Because before I started working on this, I didn't know they existed. And so when I started working with my professor on seafloor volcanoes, this is really where my passion for Earth's processes, the ocean, and chemistry all really came together. So like I said, I didn't know these existed until I started working on them. So since this is a science workshop, I'm going to introduce you to hydrothermal vents. Mainly, what are they, where are they, and why they're super cool. So scientists know more about space than we do the ocean. This is something that kind of blew my mind when I found that out, because space is so vast and so far away, and the ocean's right there. You would think we would know so much more about the ocean, but we don't. So that's why I wanted to study it. So hydrothermal vents were only discovered in 1977. That's only 44 years ago. Scientists were out on a boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean near the Galapagos Islands. And here they noticed, when they were out taking measurements, they noticed that there were large temperature spikes in the deep sea data that they were getting. What they found was that the temperatures they were recording went from around 4 degrees Celsius to 350 degrees Celsius, which is an incredible jump. And they were like, well, why is this happening? So that they went back the next year and they went down with cameras, and they were shocked of what they found. They found these large tower-like chimney structures made out of rock. These have been found to be up to 18 stories high, so about 55 meters high on the seafloor. And they were emitting a very, very hot black fluid. And this black fluid is full of metals like iron and copper, and gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur gas. And they were finding all these minerals forming on the seafloor that were precipitating out of this very hot metal-rich fluid. And they also found that they discovered an entirely new ecosystem with hundreds of new species that thrive with no sunlight, high temperatures, and toxic amount of iron-rich minerals, carbon dioxide, and sulfur. There are things like tube worms, scale worms, and limpets, and sea crabs, sea spiders down there that we didn't even know existed until 40 years ago. So I'm going to show you a quick video, and I just want you to listen to the scientist's voice. She is a very prominent scientist in the field of hydrothermal vents, and she's been studying these, like looking at these things for years, and you can still hear the excitement in her voice. And this is like this is something she looks at almost every day, I believe, and she's still very excited about them. So.
So right now we are at a depth of 3,275 meters, looking at an incredible black smoker hydrothermal vent chimney. That black fluid coming out there is likely between 300 and 400 degrees centigrade. These ecosystems are literally islands or oases amongst what is, I mean, it's really cliche, and the deep sea is definitely not a desert, but relatively islands of abundant fauna, islands of life in what is a usually desert-like deep sea floor. Oh, this is so cool. What
about 27 meters high, 30 meters high.
So yeah, so you can still see how you can hear the excitement in her voice when you look at these 30-meter high structures on the seafloor. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about where do we find them and how do they form. So the whole world is made up of tectonic plates, and these plates are constantly moving. So hydrothermal vents are found on the seafloor at these tectonic boundaries, mainly where two tectonic plates are moving apart from each other at mid-ocean ridge spreading centers, which you can see in the diagram on the right there, that while the plates are moving apart from each other, magma from deep within the asthenosphere is able to rise towards the surface and heat up the subseafloor environment. And then this heats up the water that's going down through these cracks in the seafloor. And then it pushes it back up through the seafloor. And that's what forms these large seafloor structures that are up to 30 meters, 30, 40 meters high. And just think of it almost like when you are boiling a pot of water. It's like a giant convection current happening with water circulating through the crust. So since 1977, we have discovered over 500 vents across the world oceans. All of these red and yellow dots correspond to found hydrothermal vents on the seafloor. So as you can see, they're really prominent around the Pacific Ring of Fire, or Ring of Fire, sorry, along the Pacific Ocean basin. And they're even found really close to Vancouver Island. So this is what I study in this environment. So we're only about 350 kilometers off our coast at the Endeavour hydrothermal vent field. So in this map here, here's Vancouver Island. And if you go pretty well straight out from Victoria, you're gonna intersect the Endeavour segment of the Juan de Fuca spreading center. So this is where the Juan de Fuca plate is moving away from the Pacific plate. And this area has over 80 known vent structures. So the Endeavour segment of this ridge was also Canada's first marine protected area. It was designated to be protected in 2003, and this is to protect the sensitive, unique ecosystems found here. Because the hydrothermal vents at Endeavour are home to 12 species that they have found that do not exist anywhere else in the world. So they need to be protected from deep sea exploration and bottom trawling for commercial fisheries. And mainly, why are they important? So this is what I study, I study that the minerals that when they're deposited on the seafloor, so out away from these active venting regions, you can use the chemistry of these minerals to tell us what's happening beneath the surface. And this is just really important to understand what's happening in the deep ocean. Like I said, we don't know very much about the deep ocean, so any bit of research to help further understand what's happening on our seafloor is really important. So the main takeaways from this are to explore your passions. Take what you love in your day-to-day life and apply it to potentially moving into your future. And expose yourself to as many aspects of science that you can while you're still young, while you're going up through middle school and high school. Learn as much as you can from everyone that you meet. Your teachers are wealths of knowledge. You might have an aunt or uncle or a cousin who's a scientist or an engineer. Talk to them about what they do. I'm sure they would love to talk to you about it. And as cliche as it sounds, follow your dreams. This is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a scientist, and now I'm working towards that as a potential career. So I just want to say thank you for listening. And if anyone has any questions, I can take them now.
Yay. Thank you very, very much, Melissa.
Thank you.
That was quite informative. I learned a few things about Vancouver Island that I would love for you to talk more about, but I'm sure the students themselves may have questions.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, parents or educators or your scholars themselves, feel free to use the question and answer tab. And you can just type in your questions there or the raise hand function, and I can unmute you. And while we wait for any questions, Melissa, something that stood out to me in your presentation was the fact that I think on your slide it said there's a protected area off of Vancouver Island by Juan de Fuca,
Yeah.
because they're a species that's only found there. So could you speak just a little bit more towards that, about that?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that at all.
So this was Canada's first marine protected area. It's about 100 square kilometers, which encompasses the most of, if not all, the Endeavour segment of the Juan de Fuca Spreading Center. It's to protect these organisms that we haven't found anywhere else. That doesn't mean they don't exist anywhere else. They just haven't been found anywhere else. So right now they are unique to that area. So there's, like I showed, those sea stars and the tube worms. The tube worms are unique to the Endeavour Ridge. There's been a lot of research done at UVic about them. There was a professor who only retired last year, and she was on the expedition that discovered these back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And that's what she dedicated her life to.
So it's called the Endeavour Ridge.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So we have a question from Mr. Stoa, who I believe it's from a middle school classroom of 26 students. So he's speaking on behalf of his students. Hi, students. Their question is, how many tectonic plates make up the Earth's surface?
There are, I can share my screen back and I can point them out. They're all on this slide. So this diagram here shows you the main tectonic plates that make up the Earth's surface. So there's the North American plate is a big one. The Pacific plate is a big one. This is the Eurasian plate. It covers most of Europe and a lot of Asia. And the African plate, the South American plate. And then when you get over here, you get into a lot of these little plates. So there's about 8 main plates, to my knowledge. And then there's a lot of smaller ones that have interactions as well. In these really tectonic, unique areas over in the south, like the Southeast Pacific area, north of Australia.
Cool. So there are about 8 plates. And then another question, what type of equipment is used to explore the deep depths of the ocean floor?
There's so many different types of equipment that are used to explore this. The main ones that are used are ROVs, which are remotely operated vehicles. So when science expeditions go out on the boats, they will put an ROV down over the side, and there's operators who monitor the cameras that are on these equipment, like part of this on this ROV, and they bring them down to the seafloor and they remotely operate them, almost like it's like a big robot. And that's mainly what's used to explore the deep depths. But there are also AUVs, not AUVs, HOVs, human operated vehicles, which humans can go down in, and they can go down to the seafloor and actually see these environments for themselves. I actually know people who have been to the seafloor and have seen these hydrothermal vents with their own eyes.
Okay. Wow. Is that something that you would like to do?
Absolutely. If I was ever given the opportunity, 100%.
Oh, wow.
It's like a submarine.
It's like a submarine. And you said it's called a human operated vehicle. So yes. Human operated vehicle and robot operated vehicle. That's how we get to the depths of the seafloor. Awesome. Excellent. Any other questions? Those were 2 really, really good questions.
Yeah, really great.
Enjoyed it. All right, Mr. Stower's class. How does the Earth's core stay so hot after millions of years?
That's a really great question. And I think it's something that scientists don't really know the answer to. There's a lot of hot, so the core is, it's molten metal. And I'm not even sure if we know why it stays hot after millions of years.
Oh, wow.
I don't know the answer, and I don't think that's something that we really know a whole lot about because we can't get to the core. It's something.
Yeah, maybe that's something that you would
So,
have to do a research project on.
yeah.
And I will throw back the question out to you, students who are in this symposium. Like, how do you think the Earth's core stays hot? So I'm not. You can tell me. What do
Mhm.
you guys think is going on in the Earth's
Not
core?
sure the answer for that one.
I have no idea as well. My question, while we're still waiting to see if anybody comes up with any possible ideas, was about the differences that you've seen or observed in the places that you've been as far as the land, Newfoundland, Victoria, and then you also went to the States as well, Colorado, I think. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the difference in the land there, or the land composition, or?
Yeah, so Colorado is at the base of the Rocky Mountains, or it's in the Rocky Mountains. I was living, the city that I was living in was at 7,000 feet above sea level, right at the base of one of the tallest mountains in North America, in the continental landmass of North America. And you don't have those mountains around here.
Mm-hmm.
On Vancouver Island, there's no huge mountains like 14,000 feet above sea level.
Mm-hmm.
In Newfoundland, there's the photo that I showed from Grossmore National Park. That's the tallest point in North America, in Newfoundland. And it's only about 700 feet above sea level. The difference of being so close to the ocean, and that very stark difference in ecosystems as well. In Newfoundland, it's boreal forest. Here, you get your coastal rainforests, and in Colorado, it's almost, parts of it is almost like a desert.
Wow.
And where you get rattlesnakes and tarantulas, and you don't see that here, and just the stark difference.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I've not been to Newfoundland or Colorado, so it's interesting for me to know. If ever we visit, myself or anyone who was in the symposium, just be aware of Colorado.
It was beautiful. I loved living there.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your research with it. I think we learned a lot. Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and your class of 26 students. Really appreciate it. As we are winding down, let me see if I have any other questions. No other questions. I would just like to say a big shout out and thank you to Melissa. Yay, Melissa. Thank you so much for taking the time to sharing not only about your research, but your story as well in getting here. And I hope that, the students were inspired to research not only about this topic, but also think about the path for university that they probably will be thinking about in the next couple of years and where they want to go and things like that. So we'd like to thank all our sponsors, our national sponsor, Bayer, Amgen, our visionary donors, Catalyst donors, Innovator donors, Champion donors, Discoverer donors, and Explorer donors. Parents, educators, and scholars, thank you so very much for attending. Again, my name is Crystal Washington. I am the symposium coordinator at Let's Talk Science at the University of Victoria. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and would like a video recording, a copy of the video recording of this symposium, please feel free to email us at Let's Talk Science LTS at uvic.ca. Again, that's LTS at uvic.ca.